E aí galera, beleza? Beleza? Good evening everybody, welcome, bem-vindos. Today, we're gonna talk about the sounds of the letter R. So actually, I had told you that we're going to talk about the letters R and S, but I was calculating and actually I realized we don't have enough time for both. So we're only going to do the letter R today and we can do the letter S next week. So before we start, I just want to check if the quality is okay, if we have any kind of problems. I think it's smooth as it can be. So yeah, that's good. We can begin. So before one more time, before we begin, welcome everybody who's joining. Welcome, bem-vindos. And as I said, let's begin. So first things first, the letter R. The pronunciation of the letter in Portuguese is R. R. So what you see on the screen can be read as o som da letra R. A letra R is the letter R, right? So basically in Brazilian Portuguese, it has mainly three sounds. Well, I would say two and a half because the last sound is just used in very specific parts of the country. Not everybody uses them. So we're going to deal mainly with the two first ones, right? So what are they? It's awesome. All right, great, fantastic. What are they? What's the first sound? The first one is just like the sound of H in English. So it's that sound as if you're breathing out through your mouth, and this is kind of like a sound. Just like helicopter, just like honey or hum, for example, right? So this is the first sound, which we will call a throat sound for this life, right? The throat sound, ha. And the second sound is actually a sound that I don't see many people using in their native languages because it's quite exclusive, let's say, to the Latin languages. Let me know if I'm wrong, if you have that in your language. But basically, this is what we call a vibrating sound, right? So if you could actually look inside my mouth, but you can't, unfortunately, you would see that my tongue vibrates when I produce this sound. So let me demonstrate for you. The sound is like rrr. I don't know if you can actually hear it, but my tongue is vibrating in my mouth. It's rrr, rrr. Obviously, when we actually pronounce the words, we don't make this sound that long. It's just a little bit, just a little. You know what I mean, right? And the third sound is just like this. It's a retroflex sound, which is the same as we have in English, right? Think about the word door, for example, or more. I'm talking about American English, right? Because in British English it's a little different, I know. But in American English they pronounce it like right? This is the retroflex R. And we have the same sound in some very specific parts of Brazil. We have the same sound. Right? So we have these three sounds, and now the question is, where do we use each one of them? So the letter R in Portuguese can be, well, in all positions. It can be everywhere in the word, at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. So we're going to check each one of these cases and see how to use them all. So first things first, let's talk about the words at the beginning. Sorry, the letter R at the beginning of the words, right? No começo da palavra, at the beginning of the word. And to start this out, we have a very good tongue twister that I was just thinking about before while preparing this lesson. And the tongue twister is, as you see on the screen, o rato roeu a roupa do rei de Roma. So as you see, there are lots of h sounds. One more time, this time a little bit faster. O rato roeu a roupa do rei de Roma. So it's ha, right? So when the letter R comes at the beginning of the word, we are always going to say ha, no matter where you come from. And just a reminder, this live, actually, the sounds of the Portuguese letters and so on, it depends on the accent you prefer, right? So for this live, for example, I'm going to compare two accents. The one that they use in my hometown, right, in Fortaleza, that accent. And I'm going to talk about the Sao Paulo accent as well, right, which is more about the south of the country and Sao Paulo and so on. So I'm going to be comparing both of them. But at the beginning of the word, no matter where you're from, or no matter where you hear a person saying they will always pronounce it like he. So we have some more examples there for you guys to check out. The first two are names actually. Raul, Renata. One more time. Raul, Renata. This is the sound, right? The next two words, ruby, ruby, that's a ruby. Rolar, rolar. So this is the verb to roll. In case you don't know, all verbs in Portuguese also end in R, I mean the infinitive forms of them. So we're going to deal with that later, but first let's deal with the first one. So it's rolar, it's ha, ha, right? Simple. So if the word starts like this, we just say ha. That's all, simple. Let's move on to the second case. So this is where it gets a little complex, right? Because we have the letter R in the middle of the word, and it has many forms and shapes, and it depends on many things. So first of all, let's talk about the first case, when it's between vowels, or entre vogais in Portuguese. Entre vogais, between vowels. Let's take a look. We have some words there, and the way we pronounce this R is the vibrating sound I told you before. It's this r sound, right? No matter the accent, in Sao Paulo, in my hometown, anywhere. So we pronounce it like r. For example, we have the word areia. Areia. Sand, no, areia. The next word, behind me, a wall. Parede. Parede. Right, so as you see, I don't actually vibrate my tongue a lot, but that's where the sound comes from. It's parede. I even vibrate a little bit. Parede. Parede. Right? The next one is a face. Cara. Cara. Simple. The next one is a woman's name, and it's Vera. Vera. R. Vera. And the next one is a little complicated because it's a name and a surname, and we have 3 R's there, and they all should be pronounced the same way. So we would say Maria Moreira. Maria Moreira. R, r, r. 3 times. So Maria Moreira. Right? So anytime the letter R comes between 2 vowels, we're going to say r. It's the vibrating sound. So far so good. Let's see. So, by the way, if you have any questions at any point, let me know. I can see the comments here, you guys, right? So please let me know if you have any questions. Okay? So let's move on to the next case. The next case is if the letter R is, again, in the middle of the word, but this time if it's next to a consonant, right? Or before a consonant, rather. So this one depends on the accent you want to pick. So I'm going to read first with the Sao Paulo accent and then with my hometown accent. So in Sao Paulo, they would say porta. It's a vibrating sound again. Porta. Corda. Mordida. Circo. Perto. So it's a vibrating sound in Sao Paulo. But in my hometown, or in Rio, we have similar accents. We would use the first sound, the sound that comes from your throat. So in Fortaleza or in Rio, we read, which by the way is not Rio, it's Rio, right? In Portuguese, we say Rio de Janeiro. It's not Rio, so it's Rio. Now you know how to pronounce it properly. And it's the same. We would use this throat sound. So it sounds like porta, porta, corda, mordida, mordida, circo, circo, perto, perto. So it's always like ha, ha. It depends on whether accent you prefer, but generally my lessons I prefer to use the Sao Paulo accent because the materials I work with are generally from Sao Paulo. And let's be honest, most foreigners are interested in Sao Paulo anyway. It's the biggest city in Brazil. Not the capital city, but it's the biggest one, the most developed one, and so on. That's why I generally use the Sao Paulo accent, but in my hometown, we would say a little differently. Okay, So far, we have no questions. Very good. Let's move on to the next case. And it's very important because there are many cases here. It's important that you have a pen and a piece of paper so you can write everything down, because at the end of the live, we're going to have a little exercise, a little test to see if you were paying attention, if you were following everything, right? So take a pen and a piece of paper and start writing it down. Right, the next case is what we have. We have the double R, right? Double R. And how do you pronounce it? Do we pronounce it like a double vibrating sound or a double whatever sound? No, it's actually very simple. So this double R is the same as the R at the beginning of the word. So we're going to pronounce it with this open, with the throat sound. So it's H again, H. So you see, mostly I'm using the vibrating sound and the throat sound because they are the most used in Brazil. The last sound, the one I told you before about this, the retroflex sound, it's not as common, and it's more used, for example, in the countryside of Sao Paulo or in the countryside of in the south of Brazil, let's say. It's not very used. Yeah, we pronounce it H. Right, fantastic. Great one, Elif. Great one. So we pronounce it like H, exactly. So we have a few words there. First one, corredor, corredor, he, corredor. The next one is the verb to die, morrer, morrer, morrer. The next one is another verb, the verb tie, amarrar, amarrar, right? The next one is the word rice. We do love rice in Brazil, and if you do know how to pronounce, if you don't know how to pronounce it, then you're in trouble probably. So the word is arroz, arroz, right? Arroz. And the last word is a roar. We say in Portuguese, urro, urro. So let me pronounce one more time slowly. Corredor, morrer, amarrar, arroz, urro. Right? Simple. So it's just ha, just like at the beginning of the word. Let's take a look at our next case. The next case is after a consonant. So the one we saw previously was before a consonant. This one is after a consonant, right? But it has to be on the same syllable. This is very important because if they are in different syllables, forget about it, because I don't know if you know if this is the case, but in Portuguese, the pronunciation is according to syllables. So it's very well defined. So if they are not on the same syllable, you can just forget about it, right? So if it's between a consonant such as B, C, D, F, or G, and so on, most consonants actually P or T, we pronounce it with the vibrating sound, with R, this sound, right? So we have a few examples, and especially most of my students, because of English, they tend to pronounce it like this R, because it's the same in English, right? Take a look at the first word. They would say bravo. So they would use actually the retroflex R, but in Portuguese we don't. In Portuguese we use this general, this vibrating sound. So in Portuguese we would say bravo, R, bravo, right? It's not bravo. No, nobody read it like this in Brazil, right? The second one, very similar actually. It's cravo, cravo. So it sounds like R again, cravo. That's a clove. The next one is not dragão, dragão. No. We pronounce it dragão. It sounds a little silly, I know, but yeah, it is what it is. Dragão, dragão, right? That's a dragon. The next word is a nationality, which everybody know. It's not. So in Portuguese, again, we do not use this retroflex sound. We don't say francês. We say francês, francês. So it's, again, vibrating, francês. And finally, we have the word grato, grato. So that's grateful, grato, right? I know, especially this part may be a little confusing because if it's at the beginning of the word, it's simple. It's just and that's about it. But in the middle of the word, as you see, there are many, many, many cases. It's a little complex there. So you gotta pay attention, and especially many people ask me, so how do I know which is the correct sound, right? We have many sounds. You told me I have three sounds. So which one should I choose, right? I mean, on the go, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. So just say whatever you're more comfortable with at that moment. But the way to I hate using the word memorize, so I would prefer using the word learn. So for you to learn the sound, you have to know the word, obviously, and you have to start recognizing patterns, because this is all that language is about. If you think about it, language is all about recognizing and memorizing and applying patterns. That's all it is. So the more contact you have with the language, the easier it is for you to actually see those patterns and pronounce them properly, let's say. Right? It's like gato. Well, yeah, kind of similar. Not the same exactly, but similar. So as I was saying, that's why I recommend everybody to get in touch with as much touch as you can with the language, with Portuguese or the language you're learning at the moment. And very soon, I will have a very good announcement for you guys who want to have more contact, who want to be in touch more often with Portuguese. I'll come up with something very cool. You guys are going to love it. But for the moment, that's it. Recognize the patterns. Right? Let's see what we have next. We don't have any questions so far. All right. Okay. Pretty good. Let's move on to the next one. Right. So this is where it gets a little confusing again, because we have the letter R at the end of the word. No fim da palavra. At the end of the word. Again, this depends on your accent. So let me do this again. First, I'll do the Sao Paulo accent, and then I will do my hometown's accent, or the Carioca accent from Rio, which is not Rio, by the way. Now you know the right pronunciation. It's not Rio, it's Rio. Remember. Right, so in Sao Paulo again, and you might have noticed this, the thing I was just talking about, the pattern recognition. You must have realized that in Sao Paulo they use much more often this vibrating sound, right? So this is something you can already pay attention, you can already see, just by judging a few words. But anyway, in Sao Paulo they would use the same, again, the same vibrating sound. So those are verbs, and as I said, every single verb in Portuguese finishes in R, just like these ones. So you're going to just pick a verb and you can pronounce it this way. Andar, comer, dormir, jogar, beber. As you see, it's a very soft vibrating sound at the end. Very soft. We don't kind of like overdo it. It's just that soft. Even sometimes when we talk to people, it's a little fast, you know? So that's why we kind of end up skipping the sound. We just don't pronounce it at all. For example, if I say, I will walk tomorrow, if I pronounce it slowly, eu vou andar, there's a vibrating sound, amanhã. But if I pronounce it fast, this vibrating sound just disappears, right? So I would say, eu vou andar amanhã, andar amanhã. So it just disappears, especially when we talk faster, right? This is what we call a connected speech. This is how we connect the pronunciation of the words. Some people told me that sometimes Portuguese is spoken really fast, and I disagree with that. We don't speak fast. It's just that some of us really do speak fast, to be honest. I'm one of them. And but more than just speaking fast, we connect words a lot. So there's lots of sounds that disappear, sounds that turn into other sounds just because they're connected, and so on and so forth. But what you need to know for now is that when you pronounce it fast, the sound disappears, right? So instead of andar, I would say andar. Instead of comer, I would say comer, and so on. That's in Sao Paulo. So if we go to Rio, or if we go to my hometown, we would pronounce these verbs with this throat sound. So we would pronounce andar, comer, dormir, jogar, beber. As you see, again, we use the throat sound. And if you're paying attention, you will notice that we mostly use this throat sound in Rio, or in my hometown. right? Again, when we pronounce it fast, this sound just disappears. So it's the same as in Sao Paulo. We just get rid of it. It's just a connected speech. It's how it works. All right. Let's move on to the exercise part. So if you were paying attention so far, this is how we practice. So I've come up with a list of words that all have the letter R in different positions, and I'll actually give you some time to tell me the translations, the right translations. Talk to yourself because it may sound silly, but this is one of the things I use to learn English. For example, I talk to myself all the time. I had arguments with myself back in the day, and that's how I learned it, right? So I recommend you do the same. So read the words aloud in your living room, in your bedroom, wherever you are right now. Just read them. I'll give you some time, and then I'm going to tell what the pronunciations are both in Sao Paulo and also in my hometown, right? So I'll give you some time. It's up to you now. And let me know in the comments, by the way. This is a really good time. If you have any questions, I'll be no Rio Grande do Sul. Well, so as I said, Diego, in that state, which is in the south of the country, their accent is very similar to the Sao Paulo accent, but I would say that their vibrating sounds are more vibrating, if that makes any sense. So instead of saying porta, they would say porta. So it's a little more vibrating, if that makes any sense. But it's mostly the same. And as I said, this retroflex sound is like door in English. This sound is more used in the countryside, so it's less common. I would recommend you learn those sounds if you're going to one of those places, but otherwise it's not that used. So if you have to focus, I would focus on the other two more. Okay, time's almost over. If you have any questions now, let me know and we can read them. Is the R in some importer pronounced with an H in some parts of the country? Yeah, absolutely. So in the word porta, let's go back to it. I think it was here, right? So as I said, in Sao Paulo, they would pronounce it with a vibrating sound like r, but in Rio, or whatever you want to call it, or in my hometown, we pronounce it like h. So the pronunciation in my hometown would be porta, or circo, or perto. So yes, answering your question, it does. In some parts of the country, we do pronounce it like h. But obviously, I mean, if you tell me porta, I would understand porta. So when I talk about accents, so obviously you don't have to learn every single accent because, well, Brazilians would understand if you'd say porta, if you'd say porta, even if you'd say porta with this English R, the retroflex R. But the most important thing about learning accents is when people talk to you, you have to understand them, you know? So that's the reason you have to learn, see the patterns again. So I always talk about patterns, but that's what it is. You have to see it and you have to understand what's being told to you. Obrigado, de nada, de nada. Okay, so time's up. You guys had a lot of time to pronounce these words. So, first I will pronounce it like people in Sao Paulo do, and then like in my hometown, right? First in Sao Paulo. Arroz, arroz, porta, porta, rabo, rabo, carioca, carioca, roupa, roupa, Arthur, Arthur, pronto, pronto, carro, carro, cartão, cartão, mármore, mármore, agradável, agradável. Let's see if you guys nailed it. Arroz, porta, rabo, carioca, roupa. Am I going well? Yeah, you're doing pretty well. But that's my accent, obviously, because you live with me. So yeah, that's my accent. Uh-huh. But that's pretty good. Well done. Well done. So now, this is how we read it, well, in my hometown or in here. Arroz, it's the same. It doesn't change. Porta, this one changes. Rabo, this one doesn't change. Carioca, it doesn't change either. Roupa, no changes. Arthur, so instead of r, we use h. So it's Arthur, right? Pronto, this one doesn't change. Carro, no changes. Cartão, this one changes. Mármore, mármore. Agradável, so this one doesn't change either. All right, as you see, well, for most of the country, the pronunciation will be the same, but there are accents, and with the accents, we have some little changes. But still, you see that we are able to understand even with those changes. So now, for example, after watching this live, you know that it can be r or it can be h. So when you talk to someone from here, let's say, and they say porta, now you know that means also porta in Sao Paulo. But I'm just showing you now, this is something, well, you're getting in touch with the first time for some of you guys. And I recommend you practice by talking to people like everything else, because as I said, the more you practice, the easier and the more natural it gets, right? So imagine you're talking to someone and you don't know which one to use, so porta or porta. Know that you can use either one of them and Brazilians would understand, no problem, right? And to run, jog. So Nicholas, the verb is correr. Let me write this down actually, right here instead of carioca. So as you see, this is the verb to run, like Nicholas said. So we have a double R. It's pronounced like ha all throughout the country, it doesn't matter. So it's cor, and the final R can be pronounced like r or like ha. It depends on where you are. So we could say correr or we could say correr. It depends on where you are. But it's the same with every single verb. It depends on where you are. So as I was saying, it's very important to practice, and if I were you, I would choose one accent. Let's say if you have a Brazilian friend who's from Sao Paulo, or if you're engaged to someone, if you're married to someone from Brazil, follow that accent because it will be easier for you to learn and it will be easier for you to practice and so on. The speech recognition, the patterns and so on. On the other hand, I think, for example, it depends a lot on your mother tongue. For example, if you're a native English speaker from America, from the US, then you're more familiar with this r sound. But if you're from England, for example, you're more familiar with this h sound, right? Because it's kind of the same. So it depends on your mother tongue as well. I would choose your accent accordingly. So according to the Brazilian people you have around you and your mother tongue as well. Obrigado, de nada. Meu prazer, it's my pleasure. All right. So I hope it's all clear and I hope everything's good. Now I'm going to give you guys some more time if you would like to ask me a question. And by the way, this is the first time I'm trying this on Instagram, and I don't know if they're actually going to save my live stream. But if they don't on Instagram, I will be uploading the same video on YouTube. You can find the link to my YouTube channel on my profile. There is a link tree link. You can just click on it and click on YouTube, and you just go there and you can see all the videos I make, all the live streams I make, and so on. Right? To be honest, I haven't been so active lately, but with these lives, they will be uploaded there as well. So if you lost by any reason, if you missed it, you can just go to YouTube and check it out. All right. Do we have any questions? I guess not. I'll give you guys some more time. And if you wouldn't mind, I would like some feedback. I would appreciate it because this is the first time I'm trying this. I'm actually doing this from my computer, So I'm doing it directly from my computer to my phone, so it's a little wonky, it's a little iffy. So if there is any problem, I would like you guys to tell me so I can fix it for next time. Let me see if I missed anything. Well, I guess I didn't. Muito obrigada. De nada. De nada. It's my pleasure. All right. Okay. So now we know how to pronounce all our R's in Portuguese. And as I said at the beginning, next week I'll be doing the same, but for the letter S, which is also another confusing one. And you're going to see basically the same thing, but with a different letter, with a different group of sounds, let's say, because it's mostly the same. It depends on where the letter is and so on. So basically this with another letter, right? So could you please tell also about letter S? I would love to, but unfortunately, we don't have enough time to talk about it today. And to be honest, I didn't prepare a lot for it too because I was calculating the time. But I promise you that we'll do it next Friday at the same time, about, well, 11 o'clock Istanbul time, but I don't know what your time is. So be sure to check here next week and you will see the letter S. All right? Any final questions? Let's see. Your screen's so much better like this. I know. Well, I'm using a webcam that we bought recently and I'm using some lighting behind me. I'm probably gonna have a headache from this, but yeah, at least it's better. Muito obrigada, de nada. Fantastic. Alright, so thank you guys very much for joining me today. And have a good weekend, everybody. Bom fim de semana para vocês. And I'll see you again next Friday. Até a próxima sexta-feira. Tchau, tchau, galera. See you next time. Bye.